Robertson, just a thought on Tony Martin, maybe suffering from the huge effort of supporting Cav yesterday. These guys really do have amazing powers of recovery. Any possibility that that might have affected him?
It's possible. I mean, this has been a particularly difficult Tirreno. Yesterday was a tough stage, and we saw obviously Tony Martin taking place in the lead-out train. But Tony Martin, you know, after a couple of weeks of a Grand Tour, can still pull out and win, you know, individual time trials in Grand Tours. I have just a feeling that Tony Martin isn't quite at 100%. Normally, I say normally, he'll be pushed a bit closer than that. It's not taking anything away at all from the ride of that Mallory's put up today. But of course, as we see, Philippe Gilbert.
So Philippe Gilbert prepares for his departure in the final stage of this year's Tirreno after giving us plenty of entertainment. Great effort, about 3 kilometres from the line. He was, well, about 7 kilometres from the line. He had a crack yesterday and was away for around about 3 kilometres. So decided to try and take advantage of what was slightly disorganised, or certainly a finish with a different pattern with Marcel Kittel's group out the back in yesterday's final road stage. Didn't come off for him, but well, at least he was certainly up there trying, testing his form, and of course, remember on stage 3, his final late bid for glory up that cobble climb. Not quite paying off, but still coming up with a good 4th place finish. So a sign that Philippe Gilbert is coming into strong form ahead of Classic season, and could well be a factor come the Ardennes Classics. Whether he'll be a factor next weekend in Milan-San Remo remains to be seen. I'll be along for that with Sean in the seat.
Of course, Philippe Gilbert, not a bad time trialist himself. Previously the national TT champion of Belgium in 2011. And that's why we can see those Belgian national championships bands on his skin suit today. Not the current champion, but a very, very good time trialist on his day. But of course, it is good to see Philippe Gilbert had not his best season when he wore the rainbow jersey last year. Obviously took up a win later on in the year in the Vuelta a España, which was a big release for him.
That's an amazing tug for Castroviejo. I don't recommend that, by the way. I want to look up as much as possible. He's got that cut-off helmet. They don't have the great big beak on the back of them like they used to. Very few riding with helmets like that. Certainly very few of the big contenders. Tend to be a more rounded, less severe aerodynamic profile to the helmets.
It's amazing every year, these riders, and obviously the team suppliers, whether it's frames, it's fabric suppliers in terms of looking at the skin suit fabrics, which is the quicker at cutting into the air. But it's amazing the development of aerodynamic helmets over the years, but constantly we see shifts and changes each year, and we see different shapes. And, you know, amazingly, some teams, look at the POC helmet that Garmin used, for example, very, very unusual in design, but apparently very, very effective in a wind tunnel. And then we look at the casque helmets as used by Sky, almost like a round helmet rather than a teardrop shape. So clearly some differences of opinion in relation to manufacturers and the best, most efficient shape, as we see the lovely aerial shot with Philippe Gilbert.
Philippe Gilbert in the early stages of this 9.1 kilometre time trial. His BMC teammate Cadel Evans is not taking part in today's time trial. Thanks to Matthew Bond for his question. Any news on why Cadel Evans has abandoned? Well, simply a lack of form. He's not met the expectations that he had for this race. Not quite got the form that he expected, and it was really just disappointed and didn't feel that the time trial was of any value. A little bit disappointing. If he hasn't got any specific injury, I sort of think the riders should ride to the finish and respect the race. Of course, we have had several abandons during the week for riders that have very specific injuries, but obviously clear disappointment for Cadel Evans. And well, he'll live to fight another day. He'll have a little reset, rethink, and perhaps he's got, well, it's a long season, so there's plenty of time to retune and get himself organised for Giro d'Italia. Castroviejo. It's a busy style, isn't it? But it's an amazingly compact position that he manages to achieve on the bike. And like so many riders, he rides forward on that saddle and then has to put himself back. I think he just needs a shorter top tube. I think that's what he really needs.
He's got a very, very effective aero type, but as you say, sliding back and forwards all the time.
Big time coming in from Jonathan Castroviejo. He's in the closing stages of this 9.1 kilometre test, chasing the time of Adriano Mallory, 10 minutes and 13 seconds, the sensational benchmark, 6 seconds faster than Fabian Cancellara, who in turn is faster than Bradley Wiggins, who in turn is faster than the world time trial champion Tony Martin. So Martin, in his third individual time trial of the year, is once more not going to be on the podium. So just a little bit off the ball, not quite at his imperious best. But I tell you what, it's a long, long way to September in the World Championships. And again, plenty of opportunity for Martin to retune and get it right by then.
Definitely, I'm sure he'll come into form. Obviously, riders have different objectives throughout the season. But no doubt, it won't sit particularly comfortably with Tony Martin, but I'm sure we'll see him back to form later on in the season. But very interesting to see that very, very tight shuffle around of the medalists from last year's World Time Trial Championships. As we see, the red kite taken, just under a kilometre to go now for the Spanish national time trial champion.
About a minute with a flying start for Castro Viejo, so he's not going to better the time of Adriano Malori, his teammate. Still, it's going to be an impressive effort indeed, as this small figure, he's not a big man by any means, Castro Viejo, but he really does manage to get on top of a big gear. Amazing power from such a small frame.
Everything aero. Fully, no bottle, of course, not even a bottle cage on here. The sort of distance today, I say 10 minutes, these guys don't need a bottle, of course, and that's just going to add weight to the frame and disturb the aerodynamic effect, of course. Then you've got the aerodynamic helmet. Even some of the aero gloves now that the riders use. I know Team Garmin, for example, have special aerodynamic gloves where there's no actual fabric between the fingers, so it's like a mitt, as we see. Castro Viejo coming in to finish. A respectable time.
The final 100 metres, respectable time indeed for Jonathan Castro Viejo. It's not going to trouble the leaders, but good for 23rd at this point. Solid effort. And he'll be relieved that he's got through 7 days of Tirreno Adriatico unscathed and clearly in strong form. But let's have a look at the current podium sitters at the moment. Bradley Wiggins charging into within 11 seconds of Adriano Malori and clearly on decent form, faster than Tony Martin, but not quite as fast as this man. Fabian Cancellara, 6 seconds in arrears from Malori, but that a pretty strong effort. But what about Adriano Malori, 26-year-old Italian with the Movistar team, his country's national time trial champion of 2011, and this, well, I think probably the equal of that performance, if not better. This is a big, important stage race and an important number of scalps that he's managing to take. Now here's interesting, Matt, for the time trial, Peter Sagan. You might think that his work is done. He's already got a stage win, and he's sitting in the points leader's jersey, the red of the leader of the points competition. He just has 2 points advantage over Alberto Contador, so a little bit of motivation, I think, for Peter Sagan to test his form. Contador seems home and hosed. He's got 2 minutes and 8 second advantage over Nero Quintana, but he'll want to test his time trial form. These guys need to know. But also there's the opportunity for Contador to take that points jersey as well, as we get the provisional standing 6 seconds behind Fabian Cancellara from Adriano Malori. Wiggins and Martin fill the podium spots at the moment. Tony Martin, more disappointment for him.
Yes, an interesting competition for the red points jersey. That will be certainly not even in the mind of Alberto Contador. But of course, you could argue Contador is the more superior time trial. But Peter Sagan, will come out of this race with a stage win. No doubt would like to keep that red points jersey. But a very unusual competition in relation to where the points are weighted. Heavily weighted at the hotspot sprints and not so heavily weighted at the stage finishes. So we've seen quite an unusual tussle for the red points jersey. Alex Dowsett was up there for days by virtue of the few points that he collected on his lone breakaway. So, yeah, quite an unusual point situation. But, of course, no bonifications today. It's purely the top 10 positions that will score points. So Peter Sagan definitely on a mission today, and no mean time trialist, of course. Very powerful rider, and the shorter distance will suit him.
Yeah, Matthias Brandl also scoring well in the points competition, although he hasn't been up in the finish. Malori waits in the hot seat to see if there's anyone that can possibly better his time. I think he's starting to relax a little bit at this point, because we've got a very interesting general classification chase coming up, but I'm not sure how many of those riders will be able to get in amongst Malori. Having said that, Tobias Ludvigsen, we'll see what he can do. Cycling Mad tweet in at DQ Sport. at Real Stevens, hashtag Eurosport Cycling, and he, Cycling Mad reckons JC Perro to do well today and to try and get on the podium. Seems to be in good form, and he's a great time trialer. Well, absolutely. Funny enough, we were chatting before we came on air about Jean-Christophe Perro, now at 36 years of age, the AG Tour Le Mondial rider. We'll see him a little bit later in the run, sitting 5th overall in the overall standings, and with an excellent chance of working his way up onto the podium because he's a former national time trial champion of France and has a good some good time trial performances already this season. So Perro 2 minutes and 40 seconds down. Roman Kreuziger is sitting 3rd overall at the moment, 2 minutes and 15 seconds down. So any little bit of a slip amongst those mountain goats that had the stage to themselves over the weekend in this time trial stage, well, they could well slip out of contention. So plenty of World Tour points on offer and an interesting GC battle coming up in the latter stages of this competition.
No, without a doubt, Perraud, as you say, he's a previous national time trial champion of France, but already this year, you know, 2nd overall in the Tour de Mediterranean, took a stage win there, the famous finish at Montferrand, and then was 4th in the individual time trial. So clearly climbing well, but time trialing very well as well. So I wouldn't bet against him about getting a podium spot, because Arredondo and Quintana aren't noted time trialists, whereas Kreuziger is, as we see Philippe Gilbert turning a huge gear at the moment, but respectable time so far.
Well, Gilbert is not going to trouble the top times here. Good bit off and kind of, like you say, hanging out of a big gear, rolling around a little bit and clearly suffering. An amazing character. What wonderful entertainment he's given us over the past few years, and building up nicely his form towards the classic season, which is his first major objective of the year.
I'm sure we'll see Philippe Gilbert up there in Amstel Gold, Liège, Bastogne-Liège. They're the races that he loves. He was aggressive, yes, he's been aggressive. It's unfortunate we didn't see him win the other day. I'm a big fan of Phil Gilles as he crosses the line. And in 59th position, or 64th position, 11 minutes and 11 seconds. Average speed there, 48.822. But he'll be pleased with his form so far, but not a spectacular time.
Not at this level, still it's 48 kilometers an hour. It's going some.
For mere mortals, definitely going some. I don't think a lot of us can actually sprint at that speed. So, yeah, 48 kilometers an hour. I think it's when you put it into the context of these guys, as we see the provisional so far.
So Mallory still has that 6-second advantage over Fabian Cancellara. Bradley Wiggins also on the podium, top 3 in this stage is Peter Sagan's busier style. A little bit more movement on the bike from the sprint all-rounder. What do we call him, an all-rounder, a sprinter? He can do a little bit of everything, and I suspect that when he really develops his time trial ability, and I've no doubt that he could if he wanted to, if he dedicated himself to it, well, Peter Sagan could well be a force to be reckoned with.
Rangy style here of Ludvigsen, the Swede, riding on the Giant Shimano team. Very, very big, tall, rangy rider, but incredibly gets in a very aerodynamic position. Look at his back there, very, very flat for such a tall rider, and very, very low frontally. He's got the pads there stacked up a little bit. Quite similar style to Mallory. We noticed Mallory reminded me when Mallory crossed the line of the days of Miguel Indurain, when Miguel Indurain was such a fantastic time trialist. You know, from a physical viewpoint, he looked very, very similar and very stacked up at the front. So despite not being, you could argue, particularly aerodynamic, and Mallory extremely effective and obviously generating a hell of a lot of power. But Ludvigsen here, wanting to finish this Tirreno Adriatico perhaps with a flourish. Another race in the legs. This is a long, long season that these riders have got, and this particular race has been difficult. Just look at the time gaps on the general classification. Absolutely incredible. But only 50 seconds, of course, separate 2nd to 10th place, so still all to play for in this time trial today. But I think we're going to see a big shuffle round for those podium places.
So Sagan has had pretty impressive Tirreno Adriatico. Clearly his form is good. Absolutely thrilled to get that 3rd stage success, especially as his mum hasn't been well. He dedicated it to her. And Sagan in good form ahead of Milan San Remo at the weekend as well. And who would bet against him? They've taken out the Poppiano climb, but they've still got the Poggio to get over, quite close to the finish, the Cipressa, etc. So I think Sagan is certainly, and especially after last year's performance, going to be one of the outright favourites for the first monument of the season. Okay, we're going to get another break out of the way. Peter Sagan working his way towards the finish line of this Tirreno Adriatico time trial, but please do rejoin us after this.
The Mercedes-Benz C-Class from £285 per month.
Since the dawn of time, humankind has faced danger in its quest for prosperity and progress. From villages arise cities. From cities arise empires. And once close allies become the bitterest of enemies. What will your story be? Forge of Empires. Play now for free at foe.tv.
For pure class, you can't beat the Wednesday selection. Whether it's on the fairways with the major tours in golf, with the horses and riders in the best of equestrian sport, or battling the oceans with the most gifted names in sailing. It's all here on British Eurosport's Wednesday selection. Every Wednesday night, pure class.
So, it's stage 7 of Tirreno Adriatico, the concluding stage of this year's race. Rigoberto Urán coming in to complete his 9.1 kilometer test. The Colombian rider with the Amiga Pharma Quick Step squad, charging towards the line and finding himself 33 seconds in arrears from the current leader, Adriano Malori, who looks very solid, has an excellent chance of hanging on to that stage success. But here's a man who might have a crack at besting him. Tobias Ludvigsen, a huge figure. And look at this moment on that right-hander where a spectator was on the, well, in the cycle path and perhaps felt that he was safe in there. Ludvigsen taking all the road and a little bit extra, just about managing to avoid him and taking this, well, carrying enormous speed through that right-hander. So I don't think he lost out from that. Ludvigsen churning a huge gear and heading towards what potentially could be a very decent time indeed. Peter Sagan has some good results so far this year in time trials and is heading towards a very strong time indeed. He's not going to trouble Mallory, but this is going to be a solid effort from Peter Sagan.
Definitely, Sagan rated this year 10th in the individual time trial in the Tour of San Luis and 6th in the time trial in the Tour of Dubai, won of course by Taylor Phinney, so not a bad time. Still 400 metres to go though. Obviously the picture falls short in there, but on his day Peter Sagan can pull out a decent shorter time trial. And look at him, a pretty good aerodynamic position there, getting nice and low at the front.
Well, I thought he was a bit closer to the finish than he actually was, so Sagan's not certainly going to be, well, he's going to struggle to make it inside the top 20, but inside that final 100 metres is Sagan charging towards the line. And this is going to be well inside 11 minutes and a very fast time indeed from Peter Sagan, putting it up to the other well, specifically I think to Alberto Contador for that points jersey. 18th fastest, 39 seconds behind. Well, he's not going to score points today, so it's all about hoping that Alberto Contador doesn't score points.
Yeah, normally in Grand Tours, it's the first 20 or 25 riders that score points. In Tirreno, it's just the first 10 that score points, and of course, lots of points on offer along the road every day in the hotspot sprints competition.
Now, here's a man who's given us so many thrills and spills so far this week. Wonderful performances from Michał Kwiatkowski in the Maglia Azzurra for a couple of days. Not quite able to survive the onslaught from Alberto Contador on the second last climb on Sunday's stage. And was an also ran by the time they arrived at the Guardia Grelle, as Tobias Ludvigsen goes under the kite. Just has about a minute left of his effort. in this 9.1 kilometre time trial, desperately trying to get on the back of that camera motorbike, which will stay respectfully and dutifully far enough in front so as not to be providing an aerodynamic effect. And Ludvigsen is not going to better Mallory's time. He's going to be quite a bit outside it. So Mallory survives what could be, you know, another rider who could conceivably have threatened that time of his, and it's looking increasingly likely that Mallory's going to get that overall, going to get that stage victory.
Yeah, Mallory's time very, very good today. Set the bar, as you said, extremely high. Better when you better the likes of Cancellara, Tony Martin and Bradley Wiggins, you certainly have put it out. But a very gifted time trials, as we see. Ludvigsen coming up the finish straight, completing his effort. Not a bad time trial at all, just outside the top 10 for the Swede.
So Tobias Ludvigsen powers towards the line and completes Tirreno Adriatico for himself. 17 fastest, 38 seconds in arrears. We're in San Benedetto del Tronto as we get a replay of Ludvigsen's grimacing final effort, charging across the rippled surface. Mallory with the best time at the moment, the Movistar rider, 6 seconds better than Fabien Cancellara. We're in San Benedetto del Tronto, has hosted the concluding stage of Tirreno Adriatico every year since the second year of this race back in 1967. And Kwiatkowski was was 8th in this time trial 12 months ago. Finished 4th overall on that occasion and is in fine time trial form so far this year. He won the Algarve, Tour of Algarve time trial, remember, and took a road stage and has Strade Bianche. He's on fine form. If he's recovered from his efforts at the weekend, then Kwiatkowski could be a man to look out for in the end-up of this stage. Damiano Cunego, a hero to the locals. This not really playing to his strengths, so unlikely and, well, certainly not unexpected that he's not able to trouble the big times.
Now the Little Princess is known for, of course, Giro d'Italia winner, way back now in 2004, I think it was, when he won the Giro. Never quite reached those same heights, but still one of favourite riders in Italy. Very aggressive on the climbs. When he's going well, is an exceptional climber, and in his time was one of the best in the world. But finishing today with a steady time.
Steady time indeed for Damiano Cunego, who completes his test just inside the top 100 at the moment. We're looking at Michał Kwiatkowski out on course in the early stages of this final stage of Tirreno Adriatico. The young Polish rider, just 23 years of age, already with victory in the Tour of Algarve and a stage success, and of course that wonderful victory in Strade Bianche.
Great style there. Very low at the front, but also very narrow. Riders now aren't looking at just getting low and getting the back straight. It's about getting those arms in as close as possible, just to narrow that frontal area. Kwiatkowski doing it to very, very good effect. Looks very smooth on the bike, and is certainly giving it his all as well. As we see Santa Romita out on the road for Enrico Greenedge, the Italian. But Kwiatkowski could pull out a good time. I mean, despite his bad day, Declan, I mean, he rode, you know, he rode so strong yesterday to help the lead-out train of Mark Cavendish, and was instrumental in splitting it in the finale due to that exceptionally high pace. But totally committed now. He knows he's on good form. He had a bad day, a blip in the mountains, but it looks like he's pouring everything into this effort in this time trial, and I think we could see him pull out a very good ride.
Down to the final 20 riders in this year's Tirreno out on course. Michał Kwiatkowski sitting 19th overall, 5 minutes and 57 seconds down after that nightmare conclusion to Sunday's stage. What was really impressive, I think, about Kwiatkowski was that he didn't sulk by any means, and he gave a massive turn in the concluding stages of yesterday's final road stage for Mark Cavendish that really contributed to, well, Omega Pharma Quick-Step absolutely blitzing it in the last couple of kilometres.
It happens sometimes. He's a very young man. His head didn't drop. He was very gentlemanly, and his congratulations as well on the day to Contador actually tweeted him congratulations. So extremely mature. Extremely mature for a man of his age, and obviously he's taken the defeat on the chin in relation to the overall classification. Really had a bad day in the mountains. He described nearly coming to a halt on that penultimate climb, but obviously He slept on it, pulled himself round, and now he's looking after his teammates and has the opportunity now to try and pull something out in this final time trial. As we flick back to earlier on, Malari there, the huge figure of Malari.
There's a good time coming in here from Kwiatkowski, because in actual fact to be 14 seconds down on Adriano Malori at the halfway point is not a bad effort indeed, and could well nudge him into the top 10. So Kwiatkowski's coming up with a good time. As I said, 8th fastest in last year's time trial. Adriano Malori was 6 seconds slower than Tony Martin on that occasion, in finishing second in that time trial. 9 of the top 10 riders from last year's time trial are back again this year. It was Tony Martin that won on that occasion, 6 seconds better than Mallory. Andre Amador was 10 seconds down. Kwiatkowski, as I said, was 8th on that occasion and converted that into 4th overall in the race, and perhaps his first big announcement that he had arrived on the big stage.
It's always a good opportunity to, I mean, there's not that many times throughout the year, especially for the guys who are looking at GC and races and who are looking at, well, time trialing is fundamentally important if you want to do well in stage racing. So these guys are going to use this as an opportunity to absolutely get as much as they can out of themselves, and actually it might actually lead to slight setup changes on the bike later in the season. So guys now increasingly more will go out and actually ride on time trial bikes. So Lotto Belisol, for example, you know, they do a split day. They do 2 hours on their road bikes in the morning, and then 2.5 hours in the afternoon, or just on TT bikes. It's not a matter of just getting on your TT bike, adjusting it slightly and riding it, because you're using completely different muscle groups and you're completely ineffectual. Back in the day when I was riding professionally, it wasn't overly professional in the way you rode TTs. You had your TT bike, which essentially gathered dust. You rode it on a few occasions, and that was it. But now it's a completely separate discipline and treated with respect. And these guys have been in the wind tunnels all season, in the off season, sorry, tweaking that position, because it's absolutely important. If you've got designs on winning stage races, especially in Grand Tours, you've got to be able to time trial well.
Larry Edwards pointing out that Adriano Malori has finished in the top 10 in 22 of the 33 time trials he has raced since 2011, but has won only 5. And he could be on his way to his 2nd time trial victory. Thanks for that, Harry. Nice stat. And he could well be on his way to his 2nd time trial victory of the season. Ivan Basso comes in. Bit of an also-ran in this year's Tirreno Adriatico, but building form towards later objectives in the season. 108th fastest at the moment for Ivan Basso. He'll get a loud ripple of applause. Still a big favourite in Italy as we switch back to the powerful figure of Michał Kwiatkowski.
It looks like he's in top gear there. The cadence is up slightly. I would imagine now, looking at the he's on the backward leg now. It looks like he's riding about 54.12 there, or 54.11, churning that gear. As we see, Mallory's time of 10.13, Kwiatkowski now on 9 minutes. A very, very good time.
Cian Farley, it's hashtag Eurosport Cycling, by the way, for your questions on Twitter. Can anyone explain why the riders are sporting beards lately? Sure, the heat is unbearable. I don't think anyone can explain it, really. I think anyone who's had time to shave their legs surely has time to shave their face.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, you imagine Brad Wiggins sporting a beard this season. You never know. Could he have come closer to Mallory's time without a beard as Kwiatkowski passes under the kilometre to go? Triangle. It doesn't look like he's going to be toppling Adriano Mallory's time. Although the split was good, looks like he's lost a little bit more time. And again, just shows, I mean, Kwiatkowski is in very good form. It just shows how good Adriano Mallory is. And what a ride that was. Clearly targeted this. Going well, obviously won that race earlier in the year, which seems like an eternity ago now. Interesting when you talk about the amount of power these guys can produce as we flip to Mallory, now in the hot seat. I mean, Taylor Phinney, when he won the time trial on the Tour of Dubai earlier in the year, over a similar distance, 10 kilometres, averaged 490 watts for that distance. If any of you do use a power meter, that is an incredible amount of power. And now it's the home straight for Kwiatkowski.
So Kwiatkowski is making his way into the finish, slipped to 3rd and now behind Tony Martin. It's going to be a solid effort indeed from the Polish rider, who's finishing the Tirreno Adriatico immensely strong, and that's looking good for the future. 7th fastest so far for Kwiatkowski. Smiles from Mallory because he survives for a little while longer, and at this stage he must be starting to feel that victory is his. Still, we're waiting for many of the top general classification contenders, those riders have been strong all week, so it's not beyond the bounds a possibility that one or two could come in with a decent time. Mallory, though, with that 6-second advantage over Wiggins, Martin, and Cancellara, Wiggins and Martin.
I think Mallory, as we see Scarponi on the start ramp, he was a danger man, and he's going to be glad that he's got that out of the way and he's still in the hot seat. So Scarponi about to take the start.
11th overall in Tirreno Adriatico. Michele Scarponi, a former winner of Tirreno Adriatico and indeed of Giro d'Italia. Colourful figure over the years. Now has made his way to the Astana team. And a popular figure in Italy, for all that his career has been a checkered one. Mike Curtis says surely the UCI should just let the TT riders get on with the job of racing. I think that's in reference to Castroviejo's position and our little chat about the rules, etc. Well, I think a lot of people would agree with that viewpoint as we watch Michele Scarponi launch himself into this final 9.1 kilometers of racing in this year's Tirreno Adriatico. Scarponi, as I say, currently sitting in 11th position overall, 3 minutes and 7 seconds in arrear. Still a force to be reckoned with in general classification terms. If he comes up with a good time trial today, he could move up into the top 10. That's of value to him. Some good World Tour points on offer there. We're going to take another break. We'll get this one out of the way and we'll get back to you straight after these.
Cycling is off to northeast Spain, where Ireland's Dan Martin defends his title. But Britain's informed Chris Froome is aiming to take the honours this year. The Tour of Catalonia starts Monday 2:30 p.m. live on British Eurosport HD.
Don't blend in. Mocha from Vauxhall.
Welcome to Hotels.com. Have you heard of our loyalty program? When you collect 10 nights, you get one free. Welcome rewards from Hotels.com. Wake up happy.
Get a great deal on BT Broadband from the UK's most popular broadband provider. No one gives you a more reliable wireless signal than BT, so you can have a great online experience. BT Broadband is £7.50 a month for the first 6 months, then £10 a month. Plus, you can enjoy free BT Sport, which you can watch online or on the Sky Digital satellite platform. So get BT Broadband from the UK's most popular broadband provider, plus free BT Sport for £7.50 a month for the first 6 months. Don't miss out. Call today on 0800 500 236 or visit bt.com/deal.
Whatever you're driving, when you sell it, you want a great price. We want anycar.com. Enter your reg number and details for your valuation.
Drive a Vauxhall Mocha.
Baby, I stand up.
From only £199 per month and just 3383 down. From Vauxhall.
You rejoin us as Bartosz Husarski is making his way to the conclusion of this final stage of Tirreno Adriatico. It's a solid time, just outside 11 minutes, but inside the top 50. 44th fastest for Husarski, and quite a way off the time of this man, looking very cool, calm and collected, and, well, I just can't stop smiling at the moment. Adriano Mallory, the fastest man by miles, really. Wonderful performance. 10 minutes and 13 seconds. 11 seconds faster than Bradley Wiggins and 6 seconds faster than this man, Fabian Cancellara. Driving for the line. Very effective work from Fabian Cancellara, but still giving up 6 seconds to Mallory. And the Italian rider with the Spanish team in a style that Matt Stevens says is, and who would disagree, very reminiscent of Big Mick.
Definitely reminiscent of Big Mig. Sometimes Big Mig actually looked fat on a bike, you know, from the side profiles, but it's his huge lungs as he was gulping in the air actually extended his lower stomach area. And it looked like he was he'd been out having a few too many pints, but no, such was his, you know, immense and borderline crazy lung capacity. But Mallory looks, although, you know, Mallory's still a young rider, we don't know what we're going to see of him in the future, but no, it was just striking the similarities there between him and Big Mig.
So we're down to the top 10 riders out on course at the moment. Just got a shot of Robert Kieserlowski sitting in 10th place at the moment. This is the Française de Jure rider, Alexandre Genier, who's heading in for a solid effort. So very solid time indeed from Genier, who's a good all-round rider. He's sitting 15th overall at the moment, 4 minutes and 1 second in arrears of Alberto Contador heading into this final stage. And this could well be a time that can move him up on the overall standings, because he's will he just about make it inside 11 minutes now. I think he's just going to slide outside, but not by much. He's going to be well inside the top 50. Genier is managing 46th fastest time, with still about 14 riders still to come in.
Yeah, he's clearly looking at trying to nudge himself into the top 10, lying 14th at 4:01, and a 10th position occupied currently by Robert Kieserlowski, the Croatian from Trek, at 3:06. So still doable, but you could just tell by the determination on his face he wanted to pull out as best an effort as he could. As a top 10 placing in a race like this, it's very, very good for the Palmares, and obviously the associated World Tour points that come with it too.
Jan KBG says, why are there no Pro Tour events which focus completely on the time trial apart from the World Championships if it's becoming increasingly important? They do have the Chrono des Nations, which is a very, very important time trial. It's not to that level. I mean, back in the old days, the Grand Prix des Nations was as important as any other classic, really. Well, certainly as most other classics, as we get set to see Domenico Pozzovivo, the diminutive figure. He really is a pocket rocket, tiny little man, flies up the mountains. This isn't really where this isn't his tastes normally, although he did have a pretty good run in the final time trial at the Vuelta last year, which helped secure him a decent overall finish. So he's capable of pulling one out of the bag if it's really, really necessary, but as I say, not his forte. Diego Ulissi, developing rider, crashed in the neutralised section of yesterday's road stage, but managed to jump back up and got back in.
That's not where you really want to crash.
He won't thank me for telling people. Yeah.
Definitely not, but it's not a bad time actually by Diego Ulissi here. It's going to be inside, it looks, the top 15, so very respectable. Oh, just scraped 16th place there.
That's a big time from Diego Ulissi. 10 minutes and 47 seconds, just over half a minute down on Mallory, and a very, very strong ride indeed from a rider who is, well, really making a bit of a name for himself this year.
Yeah, in good form at the back end of last year, winning a hatful of races back-to-back on the run-up to the Tour of Lombardy. But a big, big hope for Italian cycling as we get the aerial shot of Robert Kieserlowski heading well into his time trial now.
So Kieserlowski, now 27 years of age, the Croatian rider who took victory in Giro del Appennino back in 2010, 10th in the Giro d'Italia in 2010. That was his big year. 14th, sorry, in 2014, his best result so far, that 8th place finish in the first of two mountain stages in this race on the Selva Rotonda.
Yeah,
on Saturday.
Yeah, definitely everything to play for the guys in the top 10 now. Kieserlowski, as we said before, in 10th place at 3 minutes 6 down. But of course, second place, occupied by Nairo Quintana, is only at 2 minutes and 8 seconds. So, everything to play for here. So these riders are going to hopefully have warmed up well, studied the course, and got themselves focused, and then relaxed before hitting this time trial as hard as they can. It's just very, very short effort. It's all about getting as much as you can out.
And they'll have seen it quite a lot, won't they? I mean, this is not by any means the first time they'll have seen it. They'll have been over many, many times at this point.
Yeah, they'll have had a couple of opportunities to ride round it. Normally the course is opened, well, the course is opened and closed to traffic, so the riders can actually take the racing lines round it. I'd imagine these guys would have ridden it a couple of times, looked at the corners. But again, with it being not an overly technical course, probably a couple of times around it would be enough. Then get on the turbo trainer and get yourself warmed up. And increasingly our riders having a very, very structured warm-up program on the turbo trainer, which is dictated to by the team. So they have set times, when to hop on, when to hop off, when to get onto the actual bike they're going to race on, and then when they take to the start. There's none of this fannying around and missing your start line that happens to some riders in years gone by. As you see, Nocentini.
So Ronaldo Nocentini of AG Tour Le Mondial makes his way down to the finish line. The Italian rider, former yellow jersey in the Tour de France, had a great spell back in, I think, was it 2009, as Nocentini finishes 100th fastest at the moment, just over a minute in arrears from his fellow countryman Adriano Malori. And Nocentini has got some good solid work done this week ahead of battles to come. Now the top rider from the Sky Pro Cycling squad, as a result of the departure of Richie Porte, disappointing departure of Richie Porte earlier in the week, Mikel Nieve moved across from the Euskaltel squad this year, and he's been a really good acquisition for Sky Pro Cycling. Very, very solid performer. Did great work for Porte before Porte was forced to pull out, and was able to take over and move up from 9th overall to 6th after the second mountain stage on Sunday. So good, solid, consistent performance in the mountains on a stage of Vuelta a España back in 2010, stage of the Giro in 2011. As we look at the current standings, Mallory with that 6-second advantage over Cancellara. Wiggins 11 seconds back. Tony Martin giving away 15 seconds and still not on the podium. Tom Dumoulin, Alex Dowsett, great effort from him. Was off much earlier, one of the first riders off at the beginning of this test, and currently 6th fastest, so still showing good performance, and was up the road, of course, in the first road stage as well. Scarponi making his way in. And it's not going to be a top 10 time by any means for Michele Scarponi. Michele Scarponi, the Astana rider, piles on the power through to the finish as he makes his way across the line. We're going to get another break out of the way back after these.
We needed some cash fast. We knew we had some money in the value of the house, so we called We Buy Any Home.
They offered less than the market value, but we sold within weeks.
We were left property in a will, and we wanted the cash fast.
We Buy Any Home paid all our costs, and we completed within weeks.
Any property, any condition. For a cash offer within 24 hours, call We Buy Any Home on 08456 19 19 19 and sell your house today.
We Buy Any Home.
Close encounters of the extreme kind. A spectacular drama in 8 acts across the globe. Stadium sailing on 40-foot multi-hulls, racing in tricky winds, and no quarter given. The Extreme Sailing Series, Wednesday night in the Wednesday selection on British Eurosport.
Keep it going, keep going. Pretty good. Nice way here, boys. This is going to win it for us. It's the final stage of Tirreno Adriatico as Robert Kizerlovski makes his way through to the finish line, piling on the pressure inside the last few meters of this 9.1 kilometer test. And the young Croatian rider, 27 years of age, isn't going to be troubling the current stage leader Adriano Malori as he works his way into the final 300 meters. Robert Kizerlovski, solid time indeed, though. It's certainly going to be in the top 20-30 riders as Kizerlovski inside the final 100 meters rapid pedaling style from the Croatian rider. 33rd fastest, 44 seconds in arrears to Adriano Malore. And could that have helped Robert Kieselowski a little bit further up the order than his current 10th place? Now we wait for the arrival of Arredondo on the stage as he makes his way down the ramp. This is a rider that is making a name for himself this year. Julian Arredondo, 25-year-old Colombian, took GC success in Tour of Langkawi in 2013, took a stage along with that, and a couple of second-place finishes in Tour of Japan to go with that. Now, Jean-Christophe Perrault is out on course. Matt Stevens has tipped him to make a big move in this time trial.
Definitely. I think just looking at the current form he's got, his placing in the time trial and the Tour of the Med, second place overall, and just his form here as well. He's got everything to go for. He needs to, if he wants a spot on the podium, on the assumption that other riders, of course, don't beat him, he needs 33 seconds to overhaul Nairo Quintana. And, of course, but I think the final podium could be between, obviously, Contador, unless, you know, barring accidents, should take out victory here. But I think it could be Perrault and Kreuziger who round out the podium, unless you see a real surprise from Arredondo. Not a noted time trialist, but again, sometimes even if you're not a noted time trialist and you're in a position to do well on the overall, you can really pull something out of yourself. As we saw, Caruso now.
So Gianpaolo Caruso sitting 9th overall, 2 minutes and 58 seconds in arrears to Alberto Contador, and hoping to at least hang on to a position in the top 10. The rider from Katusha, 33 years of age, done a few laps at this stage, won GC in the Brixia Tour way back in 2009, and he completes his test 1 minute and 43 seconds, and well down the order, 1 minute and 30 seconds back, but he's got the pain over with. Will that be enough for him to hang on to a top 10 position? It would suggest that he could well be under pressure as Roman Kreuziger waits on the starting ramp. Kreuziger sitting 3rd overall at the moment. And Kreuziger, I would suggest, has an excellent opportunity to make it a 1-2 finish on GC for the Tinko Saxo team.
Yep, Kreuziger going very well. Remember a few days ago when you rode that mountain on the big ring virtually all of the way up, an indicator of his form. He looked behind for his teammate Alberto Contador, but clearly, I mean, it's the bottom line is Roman Kreuziger is a far superior time trialist than Quintana. Only has 7 seconds to overhaul, so 8 seconds and he's into second spot. As we see Pozzovivo, little climber coming through for his finish.
Good effort from Pozzovivo, as we saw in the Vuelta last year. I can't remember what position he finished, but it was a lot further up than people expected, and did a great job for him to retain a top position on GC. And Pozzovivo making his way through, and he's got to be inside the top 40. Is he? No, just outside it, but inside the top 50. Just over 11 minutes for Domenico Pozzovivo. That's 49.5 kilometers an hour for a man of his size. Just 49 seconds down on Adriano Malore. It's a good effort from Pozzovivo, clearly motivated. AG Tour are having a good start to the season, leading the team's classification, of course, in this year's Tirreno. Look like they have that one well, pretty close to sewn up. Roman Kreuziger gets really low down over the bars, doesn't he?
Certainly a very, very aerodynamic position on his Specialized S-Works Shiv TT bike there, very low frontally, and of course narrow. It's a balance between, as we flip back now to the diminutive Colombian, Nairo Quintana, about to take his start in the white jersey. Our best young rider, a picture of focus, a couple of deep breaths.
Is he a picture of worry, Nairo Quintana, Rojas of the Movistar squad, the Colombian rider, looking a bit worried as well. He might. 2 minutes and 8 seconds down on Alberto Contador. His main focus, though, is on retaining that second position, or at least a position on the podium, because Kreuziger is just 7 seconds behind him, so he needs to finish within 7 seconds of Roman Kreuziger's time across the line. Can he do it? So far in his career, and it is a young career, Quintana hasn't really been able to impress us with great time trial form, especially not on a flat billiard table surface like this.
This isn't the sort of course that's going to suit a climber The climbers don't put anywhere near as much power through those pedals as the big rouleurs. It's obviously different when the road steepens, and obviously then the power to weight ratio kicks in, as we see Daniel Moreno now coming through to his finish.
So Daniel Moreno 7th overall, the 32-year-old Spaniard. Gave everyone a great thrill with that Flèche Wallonne victory back in 2013. It's not going to be quite rising to similar heights, but still it's a good solid effort from the man, and it's a good solid week in Tirreno Adriatico for Daniel Moreno. The Katusha rider makes his way through to the finish line with a good solid time inside the top 100. Adriano Malori, is there anyone that can possibly take it from at this stage? I think he's enjoying the coffee, smelling the roses, and as we await the final starter in this final stage of Tirreno Adriatico, Alberto Contador, heading towards victory. He would like to rubber stamp it with a strong performance in the time trial, and you can be sure that with the Tour de France, his big objective for the season later in the year, he'd be interested to see what sort of time trialing form he's got to bring into that and other stage races. Alberto Contador leaves the start ramp, quickly gets up to speed and settles into that fast and almost, but not quite entirely unbearable rhythm that is required of the top time trialist.
This sort of effort, it's I mean, a 50k time trial is hard enough, but it's a different sort of pain. This is over. It's short and sharp, but it's excruciating. It almost makes your lungs bleed. You can taste copper in your mouth. It's not very nice at all. It's just about getting up to speed as soon as possible. So it's important, even more important than in a longer time trial, to get an exceptionally good warm-up, so you get your heart rate really high, the muscles nice and warm. So accelerate through to that first corner, then it's just about getting up to speed as quickly as possible and then holding it there in that red zone. They've had a bit of difficulty there, adjusting his skin suit as he takes this left-hander. Again, another vital thing about preparing on your TT bike is understanding how the bike handles around corners, because a low-profile bike handles completely differently than a road frame. Got to take into account completely different geometry, and of course the rear disc, as we see Mikel Nieve from Team Sky in the blue and black coming through to his finish.
Mikel Nieve, the Spaniard with the Sky Pro Cycling team, is not really troubling the timekeepers with a particularly impressive effort, but it's a solid effort, and he is through to the finish. What that's done to the overall standings, well, Matt Stevens has the abacus out. He's trying to work out who's moving where, because plenty of opportunity for movement in that top 10. Quintana out on course, as is Kreuziger, as is Contador. So the top 3 riders on general classification, the final 3 riders in this final stage of Tirreno Adriatico, are out and into their effort. And Matt, you're a climber. I mean, how did you feel about going into the time trial? Was it with a certain amount of dread as you rode pro time trials, or did you always look forward to them?
With dread, really. I've not got a great record. I'm not a fantastic time trialist. It was about getting through safely, and of course, you know, making sure I got inside the time cut, because of course there are time cuts for a time trial as well as road stages. So and when you're not a very good time trialist and you're tired midway through a stage race or towards the end of a stage race, you certainly can't rest. You've got to go hard. So I used to dread them, really, but I used to get through, get it out of the way. But it's a vitally important discipline if you've got any overall ambitions, of course, but not something I particularly liked. Always very difficult.
Well, a man with overall ambitions in this race is Jean-Christophe Perrault. He's not going to win the time trial, but he is coming up with perhaps the best time trial of the general classification runners that we've seen so far here. He's inside the final 150 metres. And Jean-Christophe Perrault of France and the AG Tour Le Mondial team is coming up with a time that inside 20 seconds is just over 20 seconds slower than Adriano Malori, as he goes down into, well, it's 20 position actually, and but still a very solid effort from Jean-Christophe Perrault, and I think that could well move him up a little bit overall. Will it move him up onto the podium? Well, Roman Kreuziger wants to prevent Perrault from taking that position from him, and he's well capable of coming up with a solid effort. Nairo Quintana, though, must be very vulnerable for his position on the podium.
Out of the top 10 finishers so far, Perrault is the quickest with 10:53. And then we have Kibalowski at 10:57, then 11:02 with Pozzovivo. So we thought and expected that Perrault would pull out a good ride, and he certainly has done so. He's just going down to the final few.
Well, Pero was 2:40 down in 5th position going into this time trial, so that's 25 seconds down on Roman Kreuziger.
See Quintana now at the bottom of the course. There's two right-handers. Make sure he negotiates this. There's a couple of little raised areas, as you can just see to the left-hand side. You've got to be careful you miss those. Ludwigsen earlier on went the other side, but safe to negotiate it through. As we flip back now to Alberto Contador, not moving around as much as he did in the saddle. In previous years, we used to see him sliding backwards and forwards constantly, but the Prologio saddle he has there. Again, you can buy these, of course, but it has almost like a nap on it. It has like a little rubber area, a little tendrils that grip the underside of the chamois, which helps prevent riders rocking backwards and forwards and increases the ability to just get that power through nice and smoothly. And Contador here adopting quite a high cadence, looking very effective at the moment.
Very narrow at the front. Seems to be two schools of thought on that. Some riders come out of the wind tunnel with a very, very narrow hand position at the front. Others a little bit wider a few years ago, and I think still the Sky Pro Cycling squad, as a result of all the work that British Cycling have done in the wind tunnel, like to get the arms a little bit wider and in line with the thighs just behind them. But there are different schools of thought, different numbers coming out of the tunnel. As we see Arredondo through to complete his test. He gets out of the saddle and gives it a big swing through to the line, and that shows his motivation to come up with a good time. 11 minutes and 9 seconds for Arredondo, 56 seconds back from Adriano Malori.
So Perot definitely jumped over Arredondo now. So Arredondo dropping down from his 4th position. All going to depend now on the times of Roman Kreuziger and Nairo Quintana. As we see the split screen here, look at the different styles. Quintana thrown very, very far forward on his bike, but seemingly turning those pedals quite effectively as Roman Kreuziger approaches 1 kilometre to go.
So it's a flying kilometre for Roman Kreuziger. He's not going to be anywhere close to Adriano Malori, but that's not really the major focus for him. For him, it's the 7 seconds deficit to Nairo Quintana, and of course trying to prevent the likes of Jean-Christophe Pero from taking it, and Adriano Malori has to go through the torture of watching each and every rider through, but I don't think there's many butterflies in his stomach at this moment. He must believe that he's got a super chance of taking this. Contador in the past, of course, has been a wonderful time trial performer, but whether he's able to relive the glory days and come up with a time trial of the sort that we've seen from the Tour de France in the past remains to be seen. Kreuziger slipping through the order as he works his way in the barriers and in the closing stages inside the final 300 meters for Roman Kreuziger.
Trying to squeeze everything he can out in his last few hundred meters, still sat down in the saddle, maintaining that aerodynamic position. A very, very respectable time here for Roman Kreuziger, eyeing a place on the podium for a 1-2 for Tinkoff Saxo. What has he done? He's coming through.
Kreuziger,
23rd place.
23rd over the line, 40 seconds in arrears, over 50 kilometers an hour for Kreuziger. A very strong performance indeed.
At the same time, 10:53 as Christophe Perot there.
So 10:53 is the number. Nairo Quintana, if he's to hang on to his 2nd place, has to be better than 11 minutes by my reckoning. 11 minutes dead will probably do it. Can Nairo Quintana generate the power necessary to hang on to that position? Much higher cadence from Alberto Contador. And much more body movement from Quintana. He's really moving around on the saddle, and all that movement, well, if it's going in, the body's moving around, it's not going all the way into the pedals, is it?
That's the power, and it's all about keeping the body as still as you can without obviously compromising. So it's important that the core is nice and still. A lot of these riders do a little bit of core work to make sure they keep the body nice and stable so that energy can be transmitted directly through the thighs down into those pedals as effectively as possible. I know Alberto Contador this year has been across to the United States, back in the wind tunnel, fine-tuning his position as we flick here to the little Colombian superstar Nairo Quintana in white and blue of Movistar. And that young rider's jersey, trying to squeeze the last few ounces of effort into this time trial.
24-year-old Colombian. Second, of course, in last year's Tour de France. Took the mountains classification as well, and the young jersey. And this looks like it's a very, very good ride by Nairo Quintana indeed. He's got 30 seconds to get to the line from here, and I don't think that's going to be any difficulty for him. So Nairo Quintana looks as if he's going to hang on to his second position from Roman Kreuziger. This is an excellent performance from Quintana as he drives towards the line. He's dragged it out, and he has just under 10 seconds to spare on Roman Kreuziger. What can Jean-Christophe Perrault? Well, that's not going to be... he's well outside that. Well outside that. So that's solid from Quintana. Ride. Guaranteed second place finish in this year's Tirreno Adriatico. And that a very impressive performance. And his Movistar teammate, Adriano Malori, will be very satisfied with that. It's a good job of work that's been done by that team this week. Well,
but that's an absolutely superb ride for Nairo Quintana to beat the likes of Roman Kreuziger and Perrault there. Not what we expected at all, but fair play to him. A superb ride from somebody you wouldn't thought can put that sort of power on the flat as we flick to Alberto Contador.
Now, Alberto Contador, it's a victory tour for him. It's a celebration lap, you might say, of San Benedetto del Tronto this afternoon, with 2 minutes and 8 seconds advantage going into this time trial. No doubt about the man that was going to. It was just a case of making sure he stays safe inside the final kilometre for Contador. And Malori, all but confirmed as the winner of the stage, as has looked pretty much inevitable for most of the afternoon. Malori dispensing with the times of Tony Martin, Bradley Wiggins and Fabian Cancellara, but Alberto Contador, well, what a performance it's been from him this week. Peerless in the mountains. Victory on Saturday, victory again on Sunday in even more emphatic form. And Alberto Contador looks to be back to pretty much similar form to that which has produced no less than 5 Grand Tour victories in his career to date. So inside the final 300 metres of this year's Tirreno Adriatico for Alberto Contador of Spain and Tinko Saxo. He's inside the final 150 metres. He's not going to win this time trial, but it is going to be a pretty impressive performance from Alberto Contador. He makes it across the line. 28th fastest on the day, but the winner of Tirreno Adriatico for 2014, no doubt about it, Alberto Contador, the winner of the final stage. Big smiles from Adriano Malori.
As we see the finishing effort there of Alberto Contador wrapping up and making sure of overall victory in the Tirreno Adriatico for 2014. He'll be pleased with that. Actually, he was beaten by Quintana by a couple of seconds. That's a big surprise, and I think that's something we can talk about on another occasion and reflect upon as we see the final time trial standings.
There's confirmation. Malori takes it by 6 seconds from Fabian Cancellara. Bradley Wiggins and Tony Martin relegated to the minor positions. Tom Dumoulin, good effort from him, and indeed also from Alex Dowsett. Bradley Wiggins, his first big time trial, well, first time trial effort of the season, comes up with a podium finish. Second time trial of the year, but his first big result on the podium. And Fabian Cancellara through to the podium, beats Wiggins, beats Martin, beats his big rivals in world time trialing, well, his big rivals of late. But Adriano Malori has forced himself into the rankings as one of the men to watch. And Malori, a tip for the top in September if he manages to retain this kind of form. 6 seconds to the good ahead of the 4-time world time trial champion Fabian Cancellara. Tony Martin, reigning and 3-time world time trial champion, back in 4th position. Alberto Contador, less concerned with that, more concerned now with getting a decent cool down and waiting to be ushered to the podium to collect the final Maglia Azzurra of the 2014 Tirreno Adriatico. Big objective for him. Wasn't thinking about gaining form for other races. For him, Tirreno Adriatico was a race to win, a very, very important race and a very important addition to his palmarès. There's confirmation of the overall standings. He lost 3 seconds to Quintana, and that is a story for the future. Quintana is developing a bit of time trial form amongst the GC guys. 2 minutes and 5 seconds in arrears, though. Roman Kreuziger, 3rd fastest. Perrault moves up to 4th. Arredondo to 5th. Pozzovivo, Keselowski, Moreno, Scarponi and Nieva round out the top 10. So Alberto Contador converts that victory. His performance in the mountains over the weekend will be a topic of discussion for many months to come. Adriano Malori, though, collects the flowers as the winner of Stage 7, the final stage, and that's his second time trial victory of the season, to go with his victory in the Tour de San Luis. At the time, I remember Taylor Finney said, well, I had the wrong gears, I'd have won, but Malori, I'll tell you what, he's got some serious scalps here today in the form of Wiggins, Cancellara and Martin et al.
Yeah, very powerfully built there, taking the plaudits on the podium. He's going to enjoy this moment, and I think we'll be seeing more of this young Italian on podiums in the future, especially in time trials. Who bet against him meddling in the UCI World Time Trial Championships as well, but putting behind yourself down, putting distance between yourself, Bradley Wiggins, Fabian Cancellara and Tony Martin. He set out a big marker there. But
Movistar have serious firepower for team time trials, as you were saying earlier.
Yeah, I mean, they've got obviously Dowsett there as well, and I'm still surprised, I'm still in a slight state of shock at the ride of Nairo Quintana. I mean, he's eyeing the Giro d'Italia this year, and when you can pull out a ride like that, you know, I certainly expected Quintana to lose his spot on the podium, but fair play to him. And it's very difficult to see how he put that power through. He doesn't come across, as we see the final time trial standings.
There's confirmation once more of the final stage standings. Malori with that 6-second victory over Fabian Cancellara. Wiggins happy enough, I think, probably with that 11-second deficit. He's there or thereabouts and building form.
Definitely, Bradley Wiggins will certainly be pleased with that. It's always good to be in the mix with guys like Cancellara and Tony Martin. But of course, I think, you know, Brad's looking at Paris-Roubaix, GPE3 coming up. Cancellaro's eyeing those as well on the run into the Tour de France. So looking at Brad's condition, that's certainly encouraging for Team Sky, especially for Bradley himself, as we approach the key point in the season. And it's those classics then going forward into the Tour of California, of course, which has a time trial on Stage 2. So Bradley Wiggins, you know, the form's good, as we see the winner today, the Italian Adriano Malori.
Here with a very happy Adriano. You've had a number of time trial victories in your career, but this must be the biggest one.
Yeah, for the other rider that was behind me, I think this is the greatest victory of my life with Wigo, Fabian, and Tony. This is amazing. Now I can believe that I make it.
And it looked like you were amazingly strong in the second half of the race. Were you using a power meter to pace yourself over the course today?
Yeah, I used the power meter, but with the time trial so short, it is not so important. You have to go full gas for all the 9 kilometers, and there is no time to keep energy.
Okay, thank you very much, Adriano.
Okay, thank you for you.
It wasn't about calculation, it was about, there was no brains involved in that, it was just absolutely flat chat.
Yeah,